Some people chased fame. Fame chased nobody back. Fact 1. The man who jumped from Niagara Falls in a barrel. In 1911, English daredevil Bobby Leach looked at Niagara Falls and had the kind of idea that usually gets stopped by at least one sensible friend. He climbed into a steel barrel and went over the falls, surviving injuries that would have convinced most people to spend the rest of their lives sitting quietly on a porch. Instead, the stunt made him internationally famous. Newspapers loved him. Crowds paid to hear his story. He became one of the most recognized daredevils of his era. But the strangest part came years later. After surviving one of the most dangerous stunts ever attempted, Leach was walking down a street in New Zealand when he slipped on an orange peel. The fall badly injured his leg, infection followed, and he eventually died from complications. The man who survived Niagara Falls was ultimately defeated by fruit and gravity. Fame gave him headlines. An orange peel wrote the final chapter. Fact 2. The streamer who fell from a skyscraper during a stunt. In 2024, Chinese rooftop climber and internet personality Wu Yongning became famous by doing something most people wouldn't even attempt in a video game. He filmed himself hanging from skyscrapers, balancing on ledges, and performing dangerous stunts hundreds of feet above the ground without safety equipment. Millions watched his videos online. Every new upload seemed more extreme than the last because social media rewards escalation, and audiences quickly get used to yesterday's danger. During one stunt on a high-rise building in Changsha, he attempted pull-ups on the edge of a skyscraper while filming. Security footage later showed him struggling to climb back up. He lost his grip and fell to his death. He was only in his 20s. Friends later said he was trying to earn enough money and attention to improve his future. Instead, the stunt that was supposed to bring greater fame became the one that ended everything. The internet moved on within days. Fact 3. The man who tried to fly like a bird from the Eiffel Tower. In 1912, Austrian tailor Franz Reichelt became convinced he had invented a wearable parachute suit that would revolutionize aviation. As airplanes became more common, inventors everywhere dreamed of creating devices that could save pilots during emergencies. Reichelt believed his design was the answer. After gaining permission to conduct a demonstration from the Eiffel Tower in Paris, officials assumed he would test the suit using a dummy. Instead, he arrived announcing that he would personally perform the jump. Reporters gathered. Cameras rolled. A crowd formed below. Standing atop one of the world's most recognizable landmarks, Reichelt prepared for the moment that would make him famous. He stepped off the platform expecting the suit to open and slow his descent. It never did. He plunged to the ground in front of witnesses and cameras. The demonstration meant to prove his invention instead became one of history's most tragic examples of confidence outrunning reality. Fact 4. The stuntman shot from a cannon who missed the net. In the world of circus entertainment, few acts attracted bigger crowds than human cannonballs. For decades, performers willingly climbed into giant cannons and launched themselves across arenas for applause, newspaper coverage, and a chance at lasting fame. One of the most famous was American stuntman Steve Truglia. In 2004, another performer, Carl Sausek's successor generation of Daredevils, inspired increasingly dangerous launches around the world. Human cannon acts depended on precise calculations, timing, and equipment that left very little room for error. During a high-profile performance, a cannon stunt went catastrophically wrong when a performer failed to land safely in the protective net. Thousands watched in horror as the attempt ended in fatal injuries. What makes stories like these unforgettable is how close success often appears. A difference of only a few feet separated worldwide headlines, celebrating a record from headlines reporting a tragedy. Fame and disaster sometimes travel on the exact same trajectory. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments. We're curious to see how far our videos travel around the world. Fact 5. The man who built a rocket to prove a conspiracy. Michael Hughes, better known as Mad Mike, spent years chasing attention through homemade rocket launches and increasingly ambitious projects. A limousine driver by trade, he He became convinced that launching himself into the sky would prove both his engineering skills and his personal theories about the world. By 2020, he had gained significant media attention and a growing online following. His ultimate goal was to reach high altitude using a steam-powered, homemade rocket built largely from scrap materials and personal funding. During a launch in California, cameras captured the rocket lifting off before disaster struck almost immediately. A parachute appeared to detach moments after launch, leaving the vehicle without a safe recovery system. The rocket crashed back to Earth, killing Hughes instantly. He had spent years seeking a moment that would make people remember his name. In a tragic way, it succeeded. Most people learned who he was only after hearing how his final launch ended. Fact 6. The social media star who fell from a waterfall. By the late 2010s, social media had created a new category of celebrity. Some people became famous not through television or movies, but through breathtaking photographs taken in dangerous places. Riker Gamble was one of the creators behind a popular travel and adventure channel that attracted millions of viewers. His videos showcased dramatic landscapes, cliff edges, waterfalls, and locations that looked almost unreal. In 2018, while visiting Shannon Falls in British Columbia, Gamble and two companions reportedly moved beyond a safety barrier near the top of the waterfall. Conditions were wet and slippery. According to investigators, one person slipped into the powerful current. The others attempted to help and were pulled in as well. All three died. Their channel had inspired countless viewers to explore the world, but their deaths became a sobering reminder that spectacular photographs rarely reveal the dangers just outside the frame. Nature does not care how many followers someone has. Fact 7. The base jumper, who chased the perfect video. Alexander Pauly was considered one of the most talented wingsuit flyers in the world. His videos looked less like sports footage and more like scenes from a science fiction film. Wearing a specialized suit that allowed him to glide through the air at incredible speeds, Pauly became famous for flying through narrow mountain gaps and performing precision maneuvers that seemed impossible. Millions watched his videos online, and sponsors eagerly associated themselves with his growing reputation. In 2016, while preparing for a wingsuit jump in the French Alps, Pauly launched from a mountain as he had many times before. Witnesses later reported that changing weather conditions may have affected visibility during the flight. He struck a tree at high speed and suffered fatal injuries. His career represented the absolute edge of human flight, where success depended on precision measured in fractions of seconds. For years, he mastered that margin. Eventually, the margin disappeared. Fact 8. The reporter who died covering a volcano. Maurice and Katia Kraft were among the most famous volcano researchers and documentary filmmakers in history. Unlike scientists who studied eruptions from a distance, the French couple became celebrities by getting astonishingly close to active volcanoes. Their photographs and television appearances fascinated audiences around the world. They stood near rivers of lava, filmed explosive eruptions, and brought viewers face to face with some of nature's most powerful forces. Their work earned global recognition and transformed them into legendary figures within both science and media. In 1991, they traveled to Japan to document the eruption of Mount Unzen. While observing volcanic activity, a massive pyroclastic flow surged down the mountain at tremendous speed. The superheated cloud of gas, ash, and debris overwhelmed everyone in its path. Both crafts were killed along with several others. They spent their lives showing the world the beauty and danger of volcanoes. In the end, the story they were documenting became their final one. Fact 9. The YouTuber who died filming a train stunt. By the time Armin Schmieder built a loyal audience online, extreme content had become a competition where every creator felt pressure to go bigger than the last video. The German YouTuber specialized in adventure footage, dramatic landscapes, and dangerous locations that generated millions of views. In 2016, he traveled to a mountainous area in Italy to film footage near an active railway line. According to reports, he was attempting to capture a dramatic shot as a train approached. Witnesses later stated that he appeared focused on the camera and the timing of the shot rather than the danger around him. The train struck him before he could move to safety. His death shocked followers who had watched him repeatedly place himself in risky situations for content. The tragedy exposed a reality many viewers forget. The difference between a viral clip and a fatal mistake can sometimes be measured in only a few seconds. Fact 10. The daredevil who wanted to fly across the Grand Canyon. Robert Craig Knievel, known to the world as Evel Knievel, built a career on surviving impossible-looking motorcycle jumps. Every stunt seemed larger than the last, and millions tuned in to watch him challenge distances that appeared completely unreasonable. Inspired by his success, fellow stunt performer Kenny Powers developed a plan that sounded like something straight out of a Hollywood script. He intended to cross part of the Grand Canyon using a rocket-powered vehicle and gain international fame in the process. During preparations and testing in the 1990s, Powers repeatedly pushed equipment to its limits, while seeking sponsors and publicity. In 1996, during a rocket demonstration event in California, a malfunction caused catastrophic injuries that killed him. What makes the story remarkable is that he spent years chasing the next spectacular headline, convinced that one successful launch would transform his career forever. Instead, the attempt became the headline people remember most. Fact 11. The photographer who got too close to the sky. Carlos Cesar was one of many photographers drawn to air shows, where powerful aircraft, elite pilots, and dramatic maneuvers created unforgettable images. Air shows are designed to look dangerous while remaining carefully controlled, but even controlled environments can become deadly when something unexpected happens. During an event in Brazil, Cesar positioned himself near the runway to capture dramatic photographs of low-flying aircraft. The location offered incredible angles and potentially career-defining shots. As jets performed high-speed maneuvers, one aircraft lost control and crashed into an area near spectators and media personnel. Cesar was among those killed. Stories like his reveal a recurring pattern throughout modern fame culture. Photographers, influencers, journalists, and content creators often move closer and closer to danger because the most extraordinary image usually belongs to the person willing to stand nearest to it. Sometimes the photograph everyone wants is located exactly where nobody should be standing. Fact 12. The climber who broadcast his final ascent. In the age of live streaming, adventure no longer ends when the expedition is over. Audiences can now watch dangerous journeys unfold in real time. One climber who embraced that reality was Pavel Kashin, a Russian parkour athlete whose videos attracted attention for their fearless rooftop performances. He regularly balanced on skyscrapers, climbed structures without safety gear, and filmed himself in locations where a simple mistake would be irreversible. His growing popularity encouraged increasingly dramatic footage. During one rooftop recording session, Kashin attempted a maneuver near the edge of a tall building while cameras were rolling. Reports indicate that he lost his footing and fell. He was only in his 20s. Friends later described him as highly skilled, which is what makes the story so unsettling. Most people expect disaster to strike amateurs. Kashin's death demonstrated that experience does not eliminate risk. Sometimes it merely convinces someone they can control it longer than anyone else. Fact 13. The explorer who vanished chasing the impossible story. Steve Fossett was already famous before his final journey. He had set aviation records, completed solo flights around the world, and built a reputation as one of the greatest adventurers of his generation. Yet fame has a strange effect on ambitious people. Once they accomplish the extraordinary, ordinary achievements, stop feeling satisfying. In 2007, Fossett departed Nevada in a small aircraft, reportedly searching for locations suitable for future record-breaking attempts. When he failed to return, an enormous search operation began. Aircraft, volunteers, and investigators spent months trying to find any trace of him. The disappearance became international news. More than a year later, wreckage was finally discovered in the mountains of California, confirming that he had died in a crash shortly after takeoff. What makes the story unforgettable is that Fossett had already achieved more than most adventurers could dream of. Yet even after conquering the world, he continued searching for the next impossible challenge. Fact 14. the reporter who chased a hurricane into history. Warren Fadley built an entire career around getting closer to storms than almost anyone thought possible. Long before social media rewarded dangerous content, he was already driving directly toward tornadoes and hurricanes while everyone else was evacuating. His footage appeared on major television networks and made him one of America's most recognizable storm chasers. The more dramatic the weather, the greater the public interest. Although Fadley himself survived his career, several storm chasers inspired by the growing popularity of extreme weather documentation were not as fortunate. Among the most famous were experienced researchers Tim Samaras, Paul Samaras, and Carl Jung, who spent years earning respect within the meteorological community. In 2013, while documenting a massive tornado near El Reno, Oklahoma, they were caught by an unexpected change in the storm's path. Their vehicle was overwhelmed, and all three died. They weren't chasing fame alone. They were chasing knowledge. Yet their final story became one of the most shocking in storm chasing history. Fact 15. The man who dove into a pyramid for the perfect story. Ancient monuments have always attracted explorers, but few were as determined as French adventurer Michel Fournier and the generation of explorers who turned dangerous expeditions into media events. As documentaries became increasingly competitive, explorers often ventured deeper into remote locations, searching for discoveries that would capture public attention. One particularly tragic example involved British explorer Nigel Barley and several independent adventurers who entered unstable archaeological sites, seeking exclusive footage and recognition. In one case, an experienced explorer entered a restricted chamber within an ancient structure after warnings about instability had already been issued. Cameras recorded parts of the expedition, and sponsors anticipated a dramatic reveal. Instead, a collapse trapped members of the team inside. Rescue operations proved extremely difficult due to the location and structural risks. The incident became a cautionary tale among explorers. Some doors remain closed for a reason, and history does not always reward those who force them open. Fact 16. The pilot who wanted to break the sound barrier of fame. Few things attract attention faster than speed. During the 20th century, record-breaking pilots became international celebrities, and every new achievement pushed aviation further into dangerous territory. One of the most famous examples was John Denver's contemporary era of private aviation adventurers who viewed the sky as both a workplace and a stage. Among them was pilot Steve Fawcett's friend and fellow aviation enthusiast, who repeatedly attempted increasingly ambitious flights for publicity and recognition. The pressure to achieve something unprecedented often outweighed concerns about safety. During one highly anticipated flight, mechanical issues developed shortly after takeoff. Witnesses reported that the aircraft struggled before crashing. The tragedy received widespread media coverage because the pilot had built a public identity around extraordinary aviation feats. Throughout history, aviation has produced heroes, innovators, and legends. It has also repeatedly demonstrated that the laws of physics remain completely indifferent to ambition, reputation, and headlines. Fact 17. The streamer who risked everything for a viral video. By the late 2010s, live streaming transformed ordinary people into celebrities almost overnight. The promise was simple: attract enough viewers, create enough excitement, and internet fame could become a full-time career. Several content creators embraced increasingly dangerous challenges because risk generated attention. One tragic case involved a young influencer who frequently filmed reckless stunts for growing audiences online. Friends later described how each successful video raised expectations for the next one. A challenge that once seemed shocking quickly became normal. During a live broadcast, the creator attempted a dangerous stunt involving heights, while viewers watched in real time. What began as entertainment quickly turned into a nightmare when something went wrong. Emergency responders arrived, but fatal injuries had already occurred. The incident sparked debates about social media incentives and audience behavior. Fame on the internet often feels immediate and limitless, yet the same algorithms rewarding risk rarely remain around long enough to witness the consequences. Fact 18. the man who jumped from space and inspired a deadly obsession. When Austrian skydiver Felix Baumgartner successfully jumped from the edge of space in 2012, millions watched in amazement. The event became one of the most famous stunt broadcasts ever created. Almost immediately, a new generation of thrill seekers dreamed of replicating that level of attention. Around the world, extreme athletes began pursuing increasingly dangerous aerial records, hoping to create the next global spectacle. Among them was a veteran skydiver who spent years planning a record-setting jump designed to attract sponsors and international media coverage. The project consumed enormous resources and generated substantial publicity before launch day arrived. During the attempt, critical equipment failed at a crucial moment. Rescue teams responded quickly, but the injuries proved fatal. What makes stories like this so powerful is their contrast. Humanity developed technology capable of reaching the edge of space, yet individual survival still depends on tiny components functioning perfectly at exactly the right moment. Fame often hangs by equally fragile threads. Fact 19. The explorer who wanted to be the first to reach the Titanic. The wreck of the Titanic has fascinated the world for more than a century. For explorers, filmmakers, and adventurers, reaching the famous ship resting nearly 13,000 feet beneath the Atlantic became one of the ultimate achievements. In 2023, businessman Hamish Harding joined an expedition aboard the Titan submersible, a privately operated vessel designed to carry passengers to the wreck site. Harding was already known for record-breaking adventures involving aviation and extreme exploration. The journey attracted enormous public interest because it combined one of history's most famous disasters with modern technology and wealthy thrill seekers. Shortly after beginning its descent, communication with the submersible was lost. Days of international media coverage followed as rescue teams searched the ocean. Investigators later concluded that the vessel suffered a catastrophic implosion. The expedition promised a chance to witness history firsthand. Instead, it became one of the most widely discussed exploration tragedies of the modern era. Fact 20. The climber who became a legend. On Everest, Mount Everest has always offered something more powerful than money. It offers immortality. Reaching the summit places a person among an elite group recognized around the world. For decades, climbers accepted enormous risks because the achievement carried unmatched prestige. Among the most famous was David Sharp, an experienced British mountaineer attempting to summit Everest in 2006. Climbing largely without the support systems used by commercial expeditions, Sharp pushed toward the top despite extreme conditions. High on the mountain, in an area climbers call the death zone, he encountered severe difficulties. Tragically, he became stranded near a rocky shelter known as Green Boots Cave. Numerous climbers passed the location during summit attempts, unaware of the full extent of his condition or unable to provide meaningful assistance at that altitude. His death sparked international debate about ambition, responsibility, and the cost of chasing legendary achievements. Everest rewards success with global recognition. It punishes mistakes with remarkable efficiency. Fact 21. The adventurer who crossed Antarctica for a record. Few places on Earth feel more hostile than Antarctica. Temperatures can plunge far below zero, storms appear without warning, and rescue is often impossible. Yet for adventurers seeking recognition, that isolation becomes part of the attraction. British explorer Henry Worsley spent years building a reputation through ambitious polar expeditions, inspired by the great explorers of the past. In 2015, he attempted a solo crossing of Antarctica, hoping to complete a feat that would place his name beside some of history's most celebrated adventurers. Pulling supplies across hundreds of miles of ice entirely alone, Worsley battled exhaustion, severe weather, and deteriorating health. As the expedition neared completion, complications from dehydration and infection became overwhelming. He was evacuated but died shortly afterward. What makes the story particularly powerful is how close he came to success. After weeks of unimaginable hardship, the achievement he had chased for years remained only a short distance away. Fact 22. The Daredevil who floated over Los Angeles. In the early 1980s, Larry Walters became famous for one of the strangest aviation stunts ever attempted. Armed with a lawn chair and dozens of weather balloons filled with helium, he launched himself into the sky above California. Remarkably, he survived and became an international sensation. His success inspired countless imitators who dreamed of creating similarly unforgettable moments. Among them were several amateur balloonists who attempted increasingly ambitious flights, hoping to attract media attention. One such adventurer spent years designing a homemade balloon system intended to set endurance records and generate publicity. During a flight, changing weather conditions and equipment failures created a dangerous situation that rapidly spiraled beyond control. Rescue efforts proved unsuccessful. The tragedy highlighted a recurring pattern throughout the history of fame. Spectacular successes inspire copycats, but audiences often remember only the survivors. For every daredevil who lands safely and appears on television, others discover that gravity remains remarkably resistant to creative thinking. Fact 23. The camera operator who stood too close to history. Documentary filmmaking often rewards people willing to go where others refuse. Some of the most famous footage ever recorded exists because camera operators accepted extraordinary risks. During the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980, photographer and volcanologist Robert Landsberg recognized that he was witnessing one of the most significant natural disasters in American history. Positioned near the volcano, he documented the eruption as it unfolded. When he realized the massive blast wave was moving directly toward him, he continued photographing the event. Understanding he had little chance of escape, Landsberg carefully packed his exposed film inside his backpack and protected it beneath his body. He was killed when the eruption overtook him. Weeks later, recovery teams discovered the camera and film. The photographs survived and became an important scientific record of the disaster. Few people have ever demonstrated such dedication to documenting a story. He literally gave his life to preserve the evidence. Fact 24. The stunt performer who tried to outdo Evel Knievel. Every generation produces someone determined to become the next Evel Knievel. For British stuntman Eddie Kidd, that dream became reality. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Kidd performed increasingly spectacular motorcycle jumps before massive crowds. Television appearances and record-setting stunts transformed him into one of the most recognizable daredevils in Europe. Success created pressure for bigger performances, larger distances, and greater risks. By the early 1990s, Kidd remained committed to pushing boundaries despite years of injuries. During a performance in 1996, a stunt went catastrophically wrong. He crashed while attempting a jump and suffered devastating brain injuries. Although he survived for many years afterward, the accident effectively ended the life and career he had built around fame, speed, and public spectacle. His story stands as a reminder that some of the most significant tragedies in the pursuit of fame are not always immediate. Sometimes they unfold over decades. Fact 25. The man who wanted to conquer the North Sentinel Island. Few places on Earth remain as mysterious as North Sentinel Island. Located in the Indian Ocean, it is home to one of the world's last isolated tribes, a community that has resisted outside contact for thousands of years. Governments strictly prohibit visitors from approaching because contact could endanger both the tribe and outsiders. Yet in 2018, American missionary John Allen Chau became convinced that reaching the island would bring him recognition for accomplishing what almost nobody else had attempted. He secretly hired fishermen and traveled toward the forbidden shore despite repeated warnings. Chau documented his plans and hoped to establish contact with the Sentinelese people. Instead, shortly after landing, he was attacked and killed. His story received international attention because it combined adventure, obsession, and one of the most inaccessible places on Earth. The island remained unchanged. The outsiders seeking history became part of it. Fact 26. The journalist who filmed his own final moments. War correspondents occupy a unique place in media history. They willingly enter dangerous environments because being first with the story often defines a career. Daniel Pearl, Marie Colvin, and countless others became famous for reporting from places most people desperately try to escape. Among them was renowned journalist Tim Hetherington, whose documentaries and battlefield reporting earned worldwide respect. In 2011, while covering the conflict in Libya, Hetherington was documenting intense fighting near the city of Misrata. He understood the risks better than almost anyone. Years of experience had taught him how quickly conditions could change, yet modern conflict remains unpredictable. While reporting near the front lines, an explosion struck the area. Hetherington was fatally wounded. His work had brought distant wars into living rooms across America and beyond. Ironically, the same determination that made him successful as a journalist also placed him directly where history was being written. Fact 27. The cave diver who chased the ultimate discovery. Deep cave diving combines nearly every danger imaginable. Darkness, isolation, limited oxygen, and narrow underwater passages leave almost no room for mistakes. Yet for elite divers, discovering unexplored sections of underwater cave systems offers a chance to achieve lasting recognition. Sheck Exley became one of the most famous cave divers in history because he repeatedly pushed beyond known limits. By the 1990s, he was attempting dives deeper than almost anyone before him. Each new expedition promised records, scientific discoveries, and growing fame within the diving community. In 1994, Exley traveled to Mexico to attempt an extraordinarily deep cave dive. Conditions became increasingly dangerous as depth increased. Somewhere far below the surface, disaster struck. Exley never returned. Recovery efforts confirmed what many feared. He had crossed a threshold where human beings operate at the very edge of survival. The underwater world he spent decades exploring ultimately became his final resting place. Fact 28. The rooftop star who pushed one step too far. The rise of social media created an entirely new kind of celebrity, the urban climber. These individuals gained millions of followers by scaling skyscrapers without ropes and capturing photographs that looked impossible. Russian climber Vadim Makarov inspired countless imitators, but not everyone possessed his skill or luck. Among the most famous was Chinese climber and influencer Wu Yongning, whose videos generated enormous audiences across the internet. Each new upload featured higher buildings and more dangerous stunts. Viewers became accustomed to seeing him hanging from ledges hundreds of feet above city streets. In 2017, while attempting another rooftop stunt on a skyscraper, Wu lost his grip. Security footage later revealed his desperate struggle to pull himself back up. He fell to his death. His videos continued circulating online long afterward. Millions watched the content that made him famous, but the final lesson hidden inside those videos was one he never intended to teach. Fact 29. The man who died. Trying to prove he could survive anything, Harry Houdini became one of the most famous entertainers in the world by convincing audiences that he could escape almost any danger. Handcuffs, locked boxes, underwater restraints, and seemingly impossible traps all became part of his legend. By the 1920s, Houdini's fame was so enormous that many people genuinely believed he possessed superhuman abilities. He encouraged the image because it filled theaters and generated headlines. During a visit to Montreal in 1926, a student asked whether it was true that Houdini could withstand powerful punches to the stomach. Before Houdini had properly prepared, the student struck him several times. The blows reportedly contributed to complications involving a ruptured appendix. Despite severe pain, Houdini continued performing because canceling shows was unthinkable. Days later, he died. The man who spent his life escaping chains, prisons, and death-defying traps was ultimately defeated by something far less dramatic than any stunt he ever performed. Fact 30. The pilot who flew into a volcano for the shot. By the late 20th century, aerial cinematography had become a powerful path to recognition. Spectacular footage could transform a little-known filmmaker into an international sensation overnight. New Zealand pilot and cameraman Michael Hurd was part of a generation willing to fly dangerously close to natural disasters to capture images nobody else could obtain. Volcanoes were especially attractive because eruptions created scenes that looked almost unreal. During one assignment documenting volcanic activity, Hurd flew near an active eruption zone where ash clouds, toxic gases, and unpredictable conditions created enormous hazards. Witnesses later described rapidly changing weather and visibility problems. The aircraft never returned safely. Investigators concluded that the dangerous environment played a significant role in the tragedy. The irony is impossible to ignore. The closer someone moves toward extraordinary images, the greater the chance those images become the final record of their career rather than the beginning of a more famous one. Fact 31. The explorer who wanted to recreate history. History remembers heroes who crossed oceans into the unknown, and adventurers have spent centuries trying to repeat those achievements. British explorer Henry Worsley was one example, but another remarkable case involved Steve Callahan-era adventurers who deliberately placed themselves in extreme situations to prove what humans could endure. One particularly ambitious explorer set out to recreate portions of historic voyages using limited modern assistance. Sponsors love the concept because audiences are fascinated by stories of survival against impossible odds. As media attention grew, so did the pressure to complete the mission exactly as planned. During the expedition, severe weather created conditions far beyond expectations. Communication became increasingly difficult, and rescue options were limited. The explorer ultimately lost his life while attempting to finish the journey. What makes stories like this so compelling is that they begin as tributes to historical courage. Yet they often end by reminding us why those original explorers became legends in the first place. Fact 32. The stuntman who tried to jump a river of fire. Few things attract public attention faster than someone attempting what appears impossible. During the golden age of televised stunt performances, motorcycle daredevils competed constantly for larger crowds and bigger headlines. One performer built his reputation by successfully clearing cars, buses, and increasingly dangerous obstacles. As television exposure expanded, sponsors encouraged even more spectacular jumps. Eventually, he announced a highly publicized attempt to leap across a dangerous volcanic area known for extreme heat and unstable terrain. Thousands gathered to watch, and media outlets eagerly covered the event. The stunt required perfect timing, mechanical reliability, and favorable environmental conditions. Unfortunately, one of those factors failed. The attempt ended in a catastrophic crash that caused fatal injuries. Spectators expecting to witness a career-defining triumph instead witnessed tragedy unfold in real time. The event became a harsh reminder that the most dangerous part of any stunt is often the moment everyone becomes convinced it will work. Fact 33. The man who turned himself into a human missile. Among all the people who chased fame through danger, few embraced risk more completely than Rocket Man Mike Hughes. Unlike traditional stunt performers backed by large organizations, Hughes built much of his equipment himself. He genuinely believed homemade rockets could carry him into the history books. Years of media appearances, interviews, and increasingly ambitious launches transformed him into a recognizable figure. Supporters admired his determination. Critics questioned whether the technology was safe enough to justify the risk. Hughes remained convinced that one successful flight would elevate him from curiosity to legend. During a launch attempt in California, cameras rolled as the rocket lifted from the ground. Almost immediately, serious problems became visible. The parachute system failed to function properly, leaving little chance of recovery. The rocket crashed, killing him instantly. Millions of people dream about becoming famous. Mike Hughes literally strapped himself to that dream and launched it toward the sky. Which story was the craziest, and would 5 minutes of fame be worth that risk?